So, ready to dive into some serious drama? We're talking 17th century England, crown versus parliament?
This is big. Think Game of Thrones, right? But instead of dragons, it's all about who gets to control the money and make the rules.
Exactly. We're talking about the Stuart era, a time that set the stage for how England is governed even today.
Huge ripple effects.
Absolutely. So we start with James I. This is a king who truly believed he was God's gift to England.
Divine right of kings. He even said kings are justly called gods because they, exercise a manner or resemblance of divine power upon earth.
Talk about confidence, right? But that belief that he answered to God and not to Parliament, well, it caused some friction, to say the least.
Just putting it mildly.
Yeah.
Especially when it came to money, which, let's face it, is the root of, so many power struggles.
Oh, totally. And you can almost picture this, right? Parliament's trying to give James advice, and he's off hunting deer. Literally, there's this story about Parliament begging him to, focus on ruling because he was so obsessed with hunting.
He was not big on taking direction. But if you think James was a handful...
Hold on tight, because Charles I is about to enter the scene.
And he took his father's playbook, and, let's just say he escalated things.
Big time. We're not just talking about ignoring advice now. Charles starts imposing taxes without even asking Parliament.
Which, predictably, did not go down well.
Yeah.
And that's where the Petition of Right comes in 1628. Parliament is basically drawing a line in the sand saying, hold up, you have to respect these basic rights.
Right, no throwing people in jail for no reason and no taxing us without our consent. And this is important, right? This isn't just some abstract legal mumbo-jumbo. These are fundamental rights they were fighting for.
Absolutely. And it's easy to forget that these rights, which we often take for granted today, were hard-won victories.
And get this. Charles tries to shut down Parliament completely, tells them to go home.
But guess who has to come crawling back when he needs money to fight wars?
You can't run a kingdom on empty pockets. It's amazing, though, right? Even with all this political drama, there's another layer of tension brewing. Religion.
Oh, yeah. On one hand, you have the Anglican Church, more on the elaborate side. Think rituals, hierarchy, the whole shebang.
Right. And then on the other hand, you have the Presbyterian Kirk, especially strong in Scotland, much more austere. Two very different visions of faith.
And then you've got Archbishop Laud, who basically tries to make the Anglican Church even more Catholic-like with the ornate rituals and emphasis on ceremony. You can imagine how well that went over with some people.
Not well at all. It was like adding fuel to the fire. So now you have political unrest, money problems, and religious tension.
And boom. The English Civil War erupts in 1642.
Cavaliers versus Roundheads. It's a brutal, messy affair. Families divided, the economy in shambles.
Right. It wasn't just about who wins on the battlefield. This was a war that touched every aspect of life in England.
Okay, so quick breakdown. Cavaliers, those are your wealthy landowners, nobles, folks who generally like the idea of a king being in charge.
And the Roundheads were a more diverse group.
Yeah.
You had merchants, artisans, even some gentry, so the upper middle class of the time, all united by this belief that Parliament should have a say in how things are run.
And after years of fighting, Parliament actually wins.
And then they do something even more radical. They execute Charles I in 1649. Can you imagine? A king who claimed to be chosen by God, held accountable by his own people.
Talk about a power shift. And this is where it gets really interesting, because out of this chaos, a new England emerges.
One where the monarchy is forced to share power with Parliament. This sets the stage for the constitutional monarchy, which is, a pretty big deal.
It's huge. And it makes you think, right? These events, this fight for power and rights, it echoes through history. I mean, it shapes our world even today.
Big questions to ponder, for sure. How did this era redefine the relationship between a ruler and the ruled?
And what does it tell us about the enduring power of ideas like individual rights and representative government?
Things we often take for granted, but as we've seen, were hard-fought victories.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most pivotal eras in English history.
A time of turmoil, yes, but also a time of incredible transformation.
It makes you wonder what stories are being written right now that will shape the future, right?
Absolutely. Food for thought.
Until next time.